Hello and welcome everyone. I'm Tigray and today I'm joined by Dr. Fasika Amdeslasie. Fasika is Associate Professor at Ayder Comprehensive Specialized Hospital and he's a practicing surgeon there. He's also head of a local NGO in Tigray, about which we will talk later in the conversation. But he was also the head of the Tigray Health Bureau during the PP interim administration, I believe in 2021. It was a short-lived interim administration. So we have a lot to talk about the health department in Tigray, both during the PP administration, during the entirety of the war, and now. And thank you for joining me today, Fasika.
Thank you, Tigray. It's really a pleasure to talk with you on this platform.
It's my pleasure indeed. So maybe I think we could start with you giving us a brief overview or summary of what the health situation, the hospital situation, and generally the healthcare system, insofar as we can say that about Tigray today is, and we will go into some detail from there.
So thank you very much. The health care status, health system status of Tigray, it can be divided into phases. That is between when the first interim government was established by the federal government, and then during the siege and the active war, and then after the Pretoria Agreement. So grossly so now we are in the post-Pretoria Agreement time. A lot has changed because at least there was an active war where many people come after sustaining trauma, and then so there is this, but there is no war right now, and I have to compare it with what used to be during the siege. So now the siege is lifted somehow. There is a communication going on between the Federal Ministry of Health. I have an information, even if I'm not directly involved. But working in the hospital and hearing referrals and colleagues talking in the rest of Tigray, there is not much improvement. Of course, we are able to resume our surgeries. For example, I'm a surgeon. We are able to continue our treatment of patients, but there is still a serious lack of supplies. Laboratory is not functional, still not functional as we speak today. In yesterday's morning report, I've heard that we still are not doing CBC. CBC is one of the basic laboratory investigations that we need to be doing to our patients in emergency and elective basis. So still, our hospital is not providing basic laboratory services. Still, there is a serious lack of medicine, including IV fluids, antibiotics. So even if the communication has resumed with the Federal Ministry of Health, as I have heard, as the minister has visited us, the supply has not improved that much. That's and then the rest of Tigray, you can imagine, because we have a destroyed infrastructure, an unpaid civil servant, a traumatized healthcare worker, traumatized population with so many problems. So what the problem and what needs to be done are very far apart. We have a huge problem, probably one of the worst problems on the face of the earth as we speak now. And we have so many problems, but the intervention has not started fully. There may be some preparations here and there, but we still are in problem. And I presume people are still getting hungry. I presume that we still have patients suffering in their homes, going to the healthcare facility, but finding nothing. So the problem has went on, even in Tigray and in Mekelle and in the rest of Tigray parts.
Maybe we have to make it clear to our listeners, you are based in Mekelle, and I think most of the sort of assessment that you have just told us based on your observation
Exactly.
around hospitals based in Mekelle. But I think it's
Exactly.
reasonable to expect that the situation in hospitals, well, actually hospitals have been destroyed in villages, as far as I know, but maybe you'll tell us more. But do you have an sort of a picture of an idea of what the situation is like in villages, and especially in the places that are still under the control of let's say outside forces, to not be political?
I cannot have any information. I just can imagine. I have spoken with IDPs that tell you the horrors that they have passed through. The IDPs are found everywhere in Mekelle and in Shire, in every part. So, and then as the rest of we hear the reports, and then we can imagine. And then there are people who come and they tell us daily that there are serious problems. So these are like parts of Tigray that are occupied by others. So I think we'll find very worse stories that we have never imagined. If and when we get the chance to meet the people in person that are still there. But in the previous experiences, those who were evacuated and displaced and came to the central, northwestern, and Mekelle part of Tigray, they have told us very astounding horrors. But the healthcare status, I don't have any clue, because I don't think no one has, because we have no communication. We have no mechanism of ascertaining whatever we are told. But in those parts where that we have access, the problem is so grave, because it comes in continuity what happened back in 2021, because then almost 70-80% of the healthcare facilities were destroyed as in just not simple destruction, but starting from looting, taking off properties, and then vandalizing, spillage of medicine, vandalizing of equipment, beds, or whatever. So expensive and important equipment were looted, taken, and what remains was vandalized. So that makes the healthcare facility, that it renders it non-functional. So some reconstruction activities may have taken place, but as you know, for 2 years there was no supply, no medicine came in, and no budget to run things. So it may have stayed like that, with the then government trying to fix certain things, but I don't think they have managed to do anything useful, because you cannot go to Waradas, you cannot go to Adwa or Adigrat or Hausen to visit, because you need fuel, and there was no fuel. Even if your bureau and Warada healthcare personnel, even if they may want to work without salary or per diem, but you cannot transport them. There is no phone connection, so you cannot hear reports. Nobody can call you and tell you what's happening there. And in some parts there was an active war, and because of these things, it was unmonitored. What was happening? It was in the dark, no connection, no transport, no budget. So the bureau cannot monitor and manage what's happening. And so the diseases have continued to happen, because a person who lives, and there are also additional factors like hunger, lack of vaccine, and things like that, that makes the population vulnerable. So rather, the disease might have increased. So it was not assessed, it was not researched. So now that it has opened, the bureau may have done certain assessments, but nothing much has changed. So it's a very grave situation with the factors I have spoke about.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Maybe we will we return to the degree of devastation that has been occasioned by the war on hospitals and clinics and other health posters in Tigray a bit later. But for now, if we could draw on a bit on what is the current situation. You mentioned earlier that the health minister visited. I think she had some sort of conversations with you guys, and I think it would be interesting to if you could tell us what the conversation was like. Did you get the impression that she understood, not just she, but also that the health ministry understood that the degree of damage that has been caused to hospitals? And did you notice, or did you sort of was your understanding of them and of the situation that there is a desire on the part of the federal government to help and to try to repair and reconstruct what has been damaged? What was your sense of the visit?
I think there was a clear purpose to help. The communication we had from the ministry, they even visited all the way to Udaga Arbi, and in all sides they have visited, they have seen the suffering, and they have felt sorry for Tigray. So that I have observed. And then they have promised to help, that they have underlined that Tigray needs help in many regards. And so that's just a few weeks back that has happened. So we wait for that to translate into practice. And I personally think the ministry has taken a very long time to come here, because health is an emergency. The moment there is a chance to come and visit or to help your people, then that you should take the act immediately. It's not like politics. Health should not be politics. It's life-saving. And it's what we have vowed for. It's our oath. So it took very long to come, but it came finally. So once you come here, I mean, anybody will be touched, because the extent of devastation is so sad. It's difficult to imagine, even let alone as a healthcare professional, but as just a human being, it's so difficult to imagine. So to answer your question, I have seen there is a clear interest and plan to help Tigray restore its health, because there are some certain pledges that they have pledged with donors and the like. For example, ambulances were totally destroyed. So now they have pledged a good number of ambulances to be supplied to the region. That's a wow. It's so I am sure that more help will come, and it should come fast, prioritizing those life-saving things, and then followed by those that can wait. So there is a clear support, a clear plan to support Tigray, I think.
Well, that's encouraging to hear that your sense is that there is a desire on the part of the federal government to help. But if that were the case, I mean, you mentioned earlier that most laboratories in your hospital aren't functioning, and I think that is for lack of equipment and
Supplies.
Yeah, supplies in general. Yeah, and again, maybe I'm not the most informed person when it comes to what kind of supplies and stuff and what is required for laboratory, for hospital laboratory to run. But my sense is that the logistics of moving supplies from Addis Ababa, for instance, to Mekelle isn't particularly difficult. So why do you think it is that you're not getting as much supply as you would have wanted?
I can imagine, because I can speculate. I don't have, because one thing, because of lack of foreign currency, even they don't have adequate supplies in the capital. There are many competing demands in the country, but even that should not be an excuse. When I say this, I'm not defending anybody, but as a professional, I can speculate, since I live in the country, and I understand. I have ideas what the cause could be. So one thing is, we have inherent inefficiency in our culture. So it's not like the West. You decide something and then it happens fast. So there is inherent inefficiency. Okay, so things don't happen very fast in our system. That's one possible cause. And the other is there is probably the foreign currency, lack of foreign currency, so they may not have at stock. But that should not be any excuse. Whatever is available should have come here and should have saved those lives that have been deprived of their rights for 2 years. This should never be an excuse. But these are probably the possible reasons. So these things, for us, we have been relieved of so many things because the siege was like total darkness. You cannot imagine. You cannot imagine as a person what a siege can be. Nobody can imagine unless that person experiences. So even lifting the siege by itself it gives you some kind of relief. But when it comes to our government hospital, those functionalities, basic functionalities, have not started. So I don't think it is deliberate. I don't think it is out of negligence, but it has not come. So for the reasons I have speculated, but those responsible should have a say about it.
So let's Fasika, let's pretend that some people from the Ministry of Health are listening to this conversation, or even some people from the international community, from donors community. What would your plea to them be, or your message or your request to them be, assuming that they were listening to us? What would you say?
So certain things don't give time. Certain things, like for example, some things can be luxury, but some basic laboratory, basic medicine, and basic services, every human being needs to have it. So the healthcare need of our people, our practice, has not been met so far, even if the Pretoria Agreement has taken months. So even if there are so many initiatives, even if I can imagine there can be so many initiatives, but it's taking time. And when you take time, you lose people's lives. So whatever initiatives that anybody is planning for Tigray, it has to happen as soon as possible. Because once the people have died, once our patients have died, coming here, it's pointless. So whatever you are doing, whatever you are intending for Tigray, it has to be as soon as possible. Enough time has been wasted. So politics aside, leave the politics to the politicians. Saving lives should be given a priority. And we are suffering, our people are suffering.
Well, I can only join you in extending my plea to the people in Addis Ababa and other people who have the means to support, to really understand the magnitude of the damage that has been wrought on Tigray, and to do the best that they can. I think that's as much as we can say on this issue, Fasika. But if I could take you back to the time when you were in charge of the Health Bureau of Tigray, give us a sense of how big the problem was for you personally to be in charge of that, in a situation, in a circumstance where there is siege, there is blockade, where nothing is getting in, and you're receiving flood of people, some of them injured from at war, and a lot of horrific things coming to the hospital. And looking at them and knowing that you don't have anything that you could help them with. What was it like? Give us a picture of that.
During the siege, you mean, right? So the siege, it's a lifetime experience. I have been. It's difficult to express in words, but what I can tell you is, it's one of the most unfair war ever fought on the face of the earth, where you are a trauma surgeon. Your purpose is to save war victims, wounded soldiers. So you have many young people who are shot coming to you. They flow in hundreds, thousands, and then they are not well fed, and you operate on them. You do the life-saving procedure, and then you don't have enough food to give them. You don't have antibiotics to give them, and then 4 or 5 days later, they come with liters of pus where you have operated, and then you have to reoperate again without antibiotics. And then again, you drain the pus. It accumulates pus. It's like medieval surgery. And some of them who are like your children, your brothers, you see them dying helplessly. You could have saved them. So it's a slow days. It's not because they are young, they can resist. They stay for a month or a month and a half and 2 months. But in that time, you have operated them 5-6 times, fighting an infection that you can control with an antibiotics. And antibiotics did not come. It was made sure that antibiotics does not reach us. So this is, as a professional, it makes you so helpless. So this is for the wounded soldiers. The same for civilians, elderly, young people, females who come for with cancers and other emergencies. And then most of the times we were returning them back home because one time there was no light, the other time there was no patient food because we ran out of the food supply, and the other time there was no IV fluid. Almost through the 2 years we did not have IV fluid. The other time because a lot of things. So we returned them, and in those window periods where we were able to operate, again, the complications, you see complications, anesthesia complications, you see, because we are using expired drugs, you see the complications I told you about, like collecting pus and necessitating reoperation. And when a cancer, you send them home and they come back, it has advanced, it becomes inoperable. It's not that we had a very perfect health system before the war, but now the worst, we have seen the worst, with no supplies, crying patients, crying in front of you, crying family members. Probably some of them came like hundreds of kilometers, borrowed money because there was no bank, there was no salary budget, anything, but they managed to come to Ayder, and we don't treat them. We just tell them, oh, sorry, probably you can come back next month. So you see hopeless people, devastated people, and that is very devastating for us. It is so devastating. So this is from the patient side. We have seen human beings suffering while we have the skills, while we have the capacity to help them, but because of supplies. Modern medicine needs supplies. Modern medicine without supplies is nothing. Traditional medicine is far better because it uses leaves and things like that, which are found in your vicinity. So we were put in a very bad place, and it was the most challenging thing. The other thing is the salary for nurses, salary for porters, salary for doctors, residents, all the stuff that we have. So we have seen people coming hungry to the hospital, fainting because of not eating. And we have seen parents crying because they did not give breakfast or lunch for their kids. We have seen people disappearing from workplace, and when you go to their home, you found them asleep sick because they have not eaten for 2-3 days. And then so it's terrible again. So we were receiving aid that was erratic because aid was not allowed to come in. Our salary was not sent. Our savings we could not access. So the aids were erratic, but when they come, they are very welcome. We welcomed them very much. And then we relied on friends and families. Those of us who are lucky, we used to get money where 50% is cut by the smugglers. So if a person sends you 10,000 birr, you get 5,000 birr, while the other 5,000 is taken by the smugglers. So it puts you in a very vulnerable situation. And then during the siege, our children did not go to school for 3 years, starting from COVID. That also frustrates you as a human being. And then there were airstrikes and drone strikes that makes you so afraid to go out. Okay, as an adult, you may manage, but for your kids, it's very traumatizing. And then, so everybody was affected. But a healthcare worker, as a healthcare worker, during those bad times, it makes you more affected, very, very much affected.
It's extraordinary circumstances, and since you are describing were unfolding at the hospital, and I will always find this the fact that this was allowed to happen something beyond the pale, and I would never understand why lots of people let it happen, because lots of people in the international community had the means to make sure that this wasn't allowed to happen. But I just want to press you on one thing, Fasika. You are a doctor at your hospital. You receive patients who have one condition or another, and you are looking at them helpless because you don't have the means to help them. You don't have the means to rescue them. You don't have the means to save their lives, and you see them die helplessly. And I want to understand the psychological impact on you as a doctor, not just you personally, but also the people, the other doctors with whom you're working at the hospital. What is that like?
So you feel betrayed, left alone. So the world, after all, is not what it professes to be. It's not what it claims to be. So when you see people dressed with very nice shirts and tuxedos and that, like, so the world claims that it's to be human, but it's inhuman. It's a jungle out there. So nobody cares about you, and then it feels that you and only your God, only God has you if you are a believer. So you feel betrayed, neglected, and you truly see how the world functions. Nobody gives any care about unless you, so that's what you conclude. So you feel betrayed and left alone. So basically, I have never raised a gun. I myself, I can have opinions. I am just a family man, and so I happen to be in Tigray, for example, when the war starts. I can have opinions. I can have attitudes. Just like me, there are 5 million people, 6 million people. Okay. And then there are, by international law, there are wounded soldiers. Okay. So these people, the civilians, the non-combatants, have the right to survive, have the right for medicine, has the right for food. And we also had the right for bank, because it's our money. We had the right to communication. So even an air would have been deprived, I think, but it was not like that. So people collectively were punished for things they have never committed. And nobody was bothered about this. Even if they were bothered, it did not mount more than concern and deeply concerned, seriously concerned, and various degrees of nice words, but it did not lead to any action. So that tells you how the world really functions. It's a very selfish and useless world, and you cannot rely on this world. That's what you conclude. So you are changed permanently. You'll be changed permanently. Of course, there are nice people out there, but the world as a system is a jungle. And in the jungle, the stronger is the weak. So it's a jungle out there. That's how I conclude, and my friends also consider it like that.
Well, Fasika, you mentioned God, and I could observe from your social media engagement that spirituality and religion have huge roles in your life, and maybe towards the end, you'll tell us a little bit about your coping mechanism, if nothing else.
Okay.
Okay. But just to push this conversation a little bit further in terms of, you say that the world is a jungle and nobody cared and nobody bothered to even check how you were doing at the hospital. Was there any attempt by the federal, and I'm being tempted to say federal government because I want to, I want to beat the drum of peace now, but ideally, I would refer to it as a regime, the Ethiopian regime. Was there any attempt by any government officials to to contact you and to try to help you during those dark times when the war was at its most horrible stage? Or were
Nobody.
you left out to
Nobody.
dry?
It's like a dark night. You talk to you. Nobody talks to you. And nobody communicates, and so nobody communicated, and nobody was talking about it from the other side in our country. So it's awkward, weird, and so nobody communicated, as to my knowledge.
So if you could for a moment, Fasika, take off your doctor's hat and wear your politician's hat, because I think when you were in charge of the Health Bureau of Tigray, it was a political appointment as much as anything else. And I think you were sort of part of the interim arrangement then. What was the vision that you had for Tigray then? What was the understanding? Where do you think you were taking Tigray as part of the Prosperity Party branch of Tigray?
So it was like one Saturday morning after the war, and we passed a terrible time where there were shellings that we went underground, and we were also treating in the hospital. And then one Saturday morning, the former president, Fatien, and then my another director, they found me on the field in Ayder. And they told me, the new government officials, they have come, they are in Planet Hotel. And so, please, we want you to be the bureau head. As simple as that. No, I said, no, I cannot be. But they said, no, nobody, it's unless we help, then our people are going to suffer. And I just gave it a thought for 15 minutes. And I said, if it's going to benefit the people, I will be. And then they said, you'll not be a party member. It has nothing to do with politics. You just be a technocrat, a person leading the bureau. And then so I said, I said, okay. And then I met Dr. Mulu and the other officials. And then they said, okay, if it's about helping people, I want to help my people. And everybody I know opposed it, except my father. Everybody I know considered me a traitor, and they were not. Until later, when they start seeing what I do, of course, many people changed their idea. But for the first 1 month, 2 months, you feel left alone. But in my heart, I said I have to help the people, and because certain things they are not political, and they have to be done. So seeing some of the politicians, people can have hatred for TPLF, people can have an agenda, but I did not have any agenda. I have nothing. I just want, I consider myself as an NGO, a person who is there for the people. There are people who come from abroad. There is the federal government, and then there is my people, local workers. So I immediately went to the bureau. I convinced the people, we are humanitarians. Let's work. I made a speech, and then they were very skeptical about me, but later, so then we had a good relationship with the federal government. To tell you the truth, I did not think farsightedly. I cannot imagine, because it's a very ugly place. It's a civil war. You are a delegate not from the people side, but from a government, from the federal government side. You do not come from the people, okay? That puts you in a very awkward situation. But whether the people like it or not, I have to serve them. I have to do until something happens. So I was connecting with NGOs, talking to ambassadors, talking to the Federal Ministry of Health, or the closest partner, and the others also. So mobilizing things, doing assessments. But we were not even trusted. You sent medicine to a certain warada, then a foreign troop or a local troop prohibits. They say you are taking medicine to the junta. Okay, the junta is with the people. And there are people, mothers, children. So health is a basic human right. So I was doing that advocacy. So it was tough. It was like trading a very thin line. But the interim government, whatever their political issues, they were supportive. They wanted me to help the people. So that also helped because I did not face any much opposition. The other is gender-based violence. There were a lot of rape cases. I have the report. That also puts you in a very bad situation. Sometimes it makes you think that you are an accomplice. But again, I was clear in my mission. I should deliver health service until they tell me that's enough, now go home, or whatever. So that's what kept me going on. And then I have met many wonderful people who were supportive later. And then they also moved out of Mekelle, and then I came back to my normal life, non-political life.
Well, yeah, I think you are my sense is that you are one of the people who were in the interim administration who covered themselves in good glory. I think the image that people have of you is of someone who tried their best to help Tigray in extremely difficult circumstances. But there is no denying that some people would have thought you were a traitor, that you were collaborating with an enemy. And I think they would be, to a degree, I mean, they would be wrong, but I could see where they would be coming from. Because on the one hand, the regime was trying to destroy Tigray. There is no denying about that. And it was trying to install something that looks like a government in Tigray, but whose ultimate purpose is to help it destroy Tigray, because that was the overriding mission. So if people saw you as someone who was fundamentally helping the regime in that sense, I think it would be something that you would understand.
I accept
But
that. I accept that. I accept that.
Yeah, I just wanted to ask you in terms of that. Yeah, I want to ask you. I mean, there are a number of other people who were in the interim administration who still today people see as, fundamentally traitors. What do you say about that?
I have no comments because here it's like a stupid politics, and I cannot comment on that. I only know what I have done, and to tell you the truth, I was not putting my nose in other people's businesses by then. I just, when I'm called, I go, and then back to my office. When it's work, I do. Otherwise, I have no, like, that's me. So I would rather not comment on. We Tigray people, Tagaru, we are deeply hurt, and I don't want to add any to that hurt by forwarding opinions. I hope you understand.
Yeah, totally. And actually, I don't want to put you in a difficult spot. I just wanted to give you an opportunity to say something that would give people a peek into what was happening, into the dynamic under which you were operating and stuff, because there's some sort of darkness around how the interim administration was trying to operate. I think people don't really understand what was happening there. And because some people fled when the TPLF came back and some of you didn't. So there is a lot of, there's a lot of gray area in there. Yeah,
exactly. So but with time it will come, Takhlai. But I just took off my role and then my relationship with my immediate supervisors, both Dr. Mulu and Dr. Abraham. So what I can say is I had a very good communication with them. I tell them what I do, and then they have never been an obstacle. That I can say. And of course, I remained in Mekelle. I'm a father of 4 kids, a family man, and I did not trust the system in Addis Ababa to go there, and I did not feel threatened by our soldiers coming to Tigray. They may be angry that I took position, but I have not done anything bad that I felt threatened. So I decided to stay. It's as simple as that. I'm a very simple person. So I calculate, And then I said I should stay. And even their exit was, I heard later, was not very uniform way. They were just fleeing here and there. So I did not trust the system in Addis. It was more threatening to be in Addis than to be in Mekelle for me. So I decided to be in Mekelle, and I am very happy that I decided that.
Well, I'm happy to that you didn't flee. I think it would have been a tragedy if you fled, because you have done right, and there is no reason that you should have even entertained the idea of having to flee. But that doesn't mean that a lot of people from the current government wouldn't have seen you in a certain negative light. And I don't know how much you want to say about this, but have you faced any sort of personal? So you
No,
it's fine.
here and
All
there,
fine.
you hear that this man was not happy about it. And then, so you better stay out of sight for a week or something. And then there were this that anybody who functioned with the Prosperity Party should not be given a position and things like that. So they were here and there, but no major thing. And later, I don't know whether I deserve that praise or not. Everybody I met in the last 2 years was so happy and thankful about it. And then it paid back. It paid back a lot. I mean, so nothing has happened to me. Even if there can be people with ideas that they don't approve, they don't like it, things like that. So it's like, nothing has happened. Rather, people were so appreciative. Everybody I have met was so appreciative, and I'm so thankful that people understood me, and I feel honored. I'm not sure whether I deserve that or not.
All right, that's wonderful things to hear, Fasika. I'm happy that things are as normal as they could be now, and everything is safe and all that, and that's what we want to see in Tigray. And generally, one of the things that I personally want to see is, people getting along, regardless of what kind of positions they might have taken, regardless of what kind of political belief they have. I think we have to learn the art of getting along, and that is what it seems to be happening, at least as far as you're concerned, and I'm happy about that. But I have been reading that there is a lot of brain drain in terms of doctors in Tigray. Is that something that you recognize? Is that happening?
It bothers me. 3-4 of my friends have already left. To train a doctor and a specialist and then a subspecialist, to reach there, it takes you like years, 10 and 10 up to 15 years. So we had very good surgeons who are very capable, who have left the country because of security reasons, because of economical reasons. Security reasons, you have seen where we live, where justice does not exist, and then you are in the hands of few individuals. So anything happens and nobody cares. So that puts you in a situation to if you have kids and if you have the opportunity, you may want to think, I want to be in a very secure place. So because of security, I have seen friends, subspecialists, people whom we cannot find just in the coming 5-10 years. If you have to plan again, when they are gone, that we may reach that after probably 10-15 years. So some of them are the only people who are functional, who can give that service. So for security reasons, and then the other for economical reasons, because the inflation, the economy deteriorating, so and then passing through the trauma and the like. So people are leaving, and it's a significant threat to Tigray. Ayder had hundreds of specialists, subspecialists. Most of them we trained. We are the founders of the hospital. We have stayed here now almost for 17 years. We started with one surgeon. Now we are 20-something surgeons. But these 20-something surgeons, they have started to leave. So it's back to square one again, where we were 17 or 20 years back. So in all regards, this brain drain is a significant threat, and it has to be tackled. Of course, people are aware about it. Leadership is aware about it. I'm not sure what they are going to do, but it's a significant threat, and we have seen it happening.
Yeah, it's a huge threat, and I'm happy that you mentioned it. But in terms of why, I think one reason that I could easily understand is that the problems resulting from the war. You know, people aren't being paid enough salary. The working environment isn't the most positive. Laboratories and a lot of other aspects of hospitals aren't functioning. So that could, create a situation where doctors are sort of desperate and hopeless. And I wouldn't be surprised if they were going to wherever their legs led them.
Yeah.
So I would understand that. But my sense is that
I don't blame them. I don't blame them, because here it's life, and then you have to get fulfillment. You have to get meaning. So where you get fulfillment and meaning, and then the opportunity, of course, if you have the opportunity. So, but it's a threat. So we cannot blame them. So it's the situation that put them into that we should blame. We should blame the situation, the war, the deprivation, the siege, and everything should be blamed, but not them, I think.
So, as someone who really understands the problem and how the hospital system and the medical system generally operates in Tigray, what would your advice be to the Tigray interim government and to the federal government for people to see, for doctors especially, to see hope in Tigray and to remain there, to see that they could grow professionally in Tigray? What are the things that you think should be done as a matter of urgency now?
So there are things the government can do, like recognize, and then there are certain material things the government can do. For example, they can give land. Land is a property of the government. Land for doctors, land for nurses, land for teachers, and then so it's since they are civil servants, it's a way of telling, we want you, we care about you, we want you to stay. These things our government have not done for many years. Like the government sells land, but they don't give you land. Land is one of the resources that they have, for example, because they may not increase salary, but there are things in their own that they own that they can give to recognize some of the young doctors, and then even some of us old ones, we may not have land. So giving a land and then some loan to build a house or other material support as a recognition can be. The other is engaging them, identify it as a problem, and then gather them, talk about it. How can we make you stay, and things like that. It's not that doctors are special, but as human beings, they have a life that they should attend to. So when they choose that life, the people suffer. The people's health suffer. So it's not like a competition of profession. My profession is better, the other profession is not. But for civil servants in general and for doctors specifically, the government should think of ways how to take care of them in things that they have. That's what I suggest. So we can meet, we can gather, and then we can talk. What do you want? What can we do for you? And what can you do for us? How can you improve your healthcare? How can you reach many people? How can we alleviate the suffering of our people? So we have to sit and discuss. That way, you feel needed, you feel wanted. Okay, so of course everybody is traumatized again from leadership to the people, but that's what I can suggest.
So in relation to this, there is lots of talk in some corners of the international community that they would be happy to play a role in the reconstruction of Tigray. And of course, one department that would need reconstruction would be the health sector. Have you had any sort of communications or discussions with any humanitarian organization to help doctors or to help hospitals and to generally help you create a conducive environment for doctors?
Yes.
Because I'm really worried at the prospect of doctors leaving Tigray. I think that would be a huge devastation to Tigray if people left.
So
So are there any efforts?
yeah, we have.
Yeah, carry on.
I am leading a local NGO established by Diaspora Tagaru. It's called Haki Foundation. So basically, we have a program. It has a website. It has a program, Care for Caregivers. Care for Caregivers. So it's a program. As part of the program, we did an assessment during the war to see the mental status of healthcare workers and teachers. So obviously, the results show that it's dismal. Everybody's traumatized. So we want to help heal caregivers, teachers and healthcare workers. So because, you know, if teachers are taken care of, that's the idea, then they teach well and students become very productive and a very good citizen. And doctors and nurses, for the reasons you have. So we are planning for many initiatives, but it's not enough. So a lot has to be done. But as the organizations that I lead, as an initiative, has a Care for Caregivers program that we have written proposals for NGOs, for donors for us to implement. A simple thing, for example, establishing a trauma informed care unit in every health facility where doctors can get support from each other, mental health and things like that. But an empty stomach and mental health does not go. So we also plan to work on the livelihood needs of healthcare workers. So we have started. We will collaborate with whomsoever is interested, but a lot has to be done. Just as you have rightly mentioned, it's a serious problem. We are a very poor country. On the top of poverty, we have been stricken by a nameless, I think, a serious war. So now we are beyond poverty, and then so our people, especially the healthcare workers and teachers, are seriously affected. So something have to be done to make them have a decent life, so that they become healthy again, so that they take care of their patients, their students. That's the idea. With abnormal mind, with empty stomach, with fear of security, they cannot give care to their patients and students. So a lot has to be done. And it's a very good point that you have raised, but I have not seen much activity. But I just want to state you what we have started.
Well, it's wonderful that you segued into the NGO Haki, because that was going to be my next question, but I think you raised the important point there. And maybe if you have some detailed plans or any other aspect that you want to point out, I would be happy to host another conversation about what you are trying to do with Haki. But for now, I just wish you success, because it looks like to me that we desperately need to help health experts and doctors in Tigray, because they well, first of all, they deserve help owing to what they have had to endure the past 3 years. But also
I
they
would
are
like
very
to
important.
add two things on Haki. One is we have already secured a fund for establishing a helpline, a 3-digit free toll line, where we train people, and then they will be sitting in a desk where they will get calls from all over Tigray, people who are psychosocially distressed, troubled, so that they get advice. This we are launching right now. I mean, we have secured the fund, and we are preparing the infrastructure and the like. That's one thing. In this program, in this helpline, it's called Haki Line, teachers and healthcare workers can benefit first. So we will be doing campaigns in schools where I think someone to talk to, a professional, to get advice is the first thing, because we don't have mental health in Tigray, even we will not have in the coming many years. But the problem is right now. We have a lot of people with psychosocial problems. So the psychological aspect we try to address with Hakilai. The other is for we have a Momona scholarship, a mentorship program, mentorship program, where people like you abroad who have certain skills can mentor the youth here, our young people here, were ex-soldiers, were disabled, and even any other young man. We will link them through a platform in the website where, depending on their need, research skills, scholarship, seeking scholarship, and other entrepreneurship skills, so that you'll be, for example, if you are a volunteer as a mentor, you'll be mentoring people in Tigray, so that you give back to Tigray while you are staying there. So we also are planning. So we have a lot of initiatives, mainly on caregivers, but also on youth. I invite you to visit the website. Just you will love it, and
I will happily visit. I will happily visit. So Fasika, you mentioned words like depression and trauma and psychosocial problems and stress and lots of other problems that I could easily imagine people would be going through. Lots of people in Tigray. Is there something that is being done to help people in those situations, whether that be therapy or other remedies? Is there any efforts? Because my worry is that they are not even recognized as problems.
So far there are trainings here and there by WHO, UNFP, and then things like that. But it's like trying to buy a cup to take water from. So it's never addressed. The problem is so huge. People, including us, all of us are traumatized. We have anxiety problem. Whenever something like you hear a loud voice, you become so startled, and you start replaying what you have experienced in those dark times. We have a lot of women, mothers, girls, wives raped. We have a lot of people whose families have died. So the mental health burden is so huge, and we don't have the human resource to address all of this. That's why we need to have many innovative interventions. So a lot of things have to be done, like media work has to be done. And the one we have started, like Hakiline, it's one way to address people. It can reach like 100,000 to million people if we advocate for it and promote it. So a lot has to be done, and I don't think we have even started addressing this huge problem.
Well, so Fasika, if I could be a bit cheeky again and ask you some personal questions. I think we're about to end the conversation because we're running out of time. You mentioned God and spirituality and lots of other things during this conversation, and it's something that I have observed about you is even at the height of the war in 2011. I used to follow you on Twitter when I was there, and invariably you used to write messages that could be described as positive, even when animosity and hatred might have been justified. And I have always wondered whether that was something that you had been writing because you thought that was the right message to send out, or you truly believed that there was nobody who was an enemy, or there was nobody that deserved hatred and stuff like that. And what was the thinking? Is it the case that you don't really have an animosity towards anybody? You don't really have any hatred? You truly believe that human beings at their sort of at their core decent? Is that what you believe?
It's a fight going on inside you. You have every reason to hate everyone. And so, but it's a reminder, a self-reminder. So hate feelings come to me. So a very repulsive hate comes to me. But I am a believer. I believe in the Bible. I believe in God the Almighty. And so it's a fight, a continuous fight. So there is this law that you have to respect, because the Bible says don't hate. So I try not to hate. So, but not hating does not mean not seeking justice. Not hating, for example, a person who has done something has to be punished. I believe in that. I believe in justice, in human justice, in divine justice. But personally, I find it healthy, and I find it, I believe it's not only imposed because of the law. I also think it's healthy if you don't hate people. If you hate people, it's like a cancer. So that's why I remind, it's to remind myself and to remind certain people. And when you come to my, I have told you I'm a believer, and so it's the most important thing in my life. And I am a social person. I interact with people. I interact with you. I interact with my friends. So one of the most important thing I can tell people is about the peace of mind I get from God and the importance in my life. So I do it from, I share my ideas from a goodwill, not intending to put myself as a smart person or to belittle people who have a different opinion. And then when you come to Tigray, we have a society that is like 90-something% Christian. And so it's one of our assets. If you have asked, what is the asset of Tigray? One is, I think it's our religion, our faith. So if we discuss on that, I think it will help in the healing. That's why I talk about it. And basically, if we meet in person, for example, if you just happen to be friends, if you talk, I either talk about God or I talk about politics, which is not safe to talk about now. It's not, and it's pointless to talk politics because I don't have any solution. It has become so complicated that I don't have any suggestions. So these are the two interests of mine, either like in our social things, and then either in our faith things. So I chose, let me stick to the faith while doing my job, like running the projects and doing my. So I think again, discussing on our faith, elaborating it, and making the implicit explicit, it will help in the healing process, because we are Christians and it's our asset. That's what I do. But personally, my belief in God has made me survive those dark times. My belief in God has helped me do whatever small thing I attribute it to my faith in God. Nothing else, because I'm just a simple person, and I have nothing to offer. But whatever I did, I think I attribute it to God. So that's me, and so that's me in short, and my faith in God.
Yeah. Brilliant, Fasika. Lots of points that maybe we're going to expand on another time. But for today, we're going to leave it at that. And thank you for taking the time to join me today. I know that you have a very busy schedule, so I'm doubly grateful to you for that. And if you have any message that you think you should get out, please do so. Otherwise, that would be that.
I appreciate what you guys do, you and your colleague, Tagat. I'm so appreciative. You are our voice. And then I also appreciate the things you do on Tigrinya language. I am so happy about it, because my lingua franca is Amharic. I was born and raised in the central part of Ethiopia, in Nazareth. So I would like to appreciate in preserving of Tigray things, and then for being voice for our people. I would, and then if it's a message that I would like to pass for Tagaru and friends of Tagaru is whomsoever who plans to help Tigray, whatever, there is no little help. There can never be a little help. So they should come irrespective of their whatever views, and they should be accommodated. We should include them. Any people would be useful, because we have almost nothing now. So whatever your ideas or whatever resources, your mind you can put to Tigray, you have to do it without belittling it. You don't say this is small. Whatever you have, throw it, and let's rebuild our Tigray together. That's the message I would like to pass.
Well, thank you for the nice words, Fasika, and thank you for joining me. But also thank you for trying your best in extremely difficult circumstances in Tigray. So thank you for your service, and thank you to our listeners. This was Tigray, and goodbye.
Thank you very much. Bye.